Right, today I've come to Hetty Peggler's Tump in Gloucestershire to see Hetty Peggler's Tump. It's also known as the Ewley Long Barrow. It's part of the Cotswold 7 area of Neolithic England. Cotswolds were hugely densely populated in the Neolithic period. Similarly densely populated to Salisbury Plain, because in the Neolithic period the lowlands were marshy and full of woods. You didn't want to live in them, they were difficult to clear, but if you went up on top of the hill there was land you could clear for farming pretty easily, and that's where the majority of Neolithic Britons lived. The Cotswolds, being a very large area of hills, had a huge Neolithic population, and while they didn't leave us behind the sort of things we see in the Salisbury Plain like Stonehenge and Avebury Ring, they did leave hundreds, and I do mean hundreds of barrows, and the one that's behind us is one of the best preserved. While it has been broken into many times and many of its treasures may have been lost, ultimately it is the best preserved in this area and has been reconstructed slightly so that we can go and have a look inside and see what it would have looked like. The bones are long gone. According to the locals, they were buried in the local churchyard, although we know that 2 skulls were sent to London for study. Whether or not that's definite, nobody's quite sure. But assuming that we don't want to see human bones, the inside should be pretty interesting. Approaching the barrow, there doesn't appear to be an entrance, but it reveals itself as you get closer. There it is, that's the entrance there. It's very small. Neolithic man was much smaller than me, and so was Victorian man, and in fact most modern men as well. It's quite a weird sort of entrance. It's very low and very dark. One feels the weight not just of the stone but also of the history as one approaches. And yeah, getting down onto one's hands and knees to get inside is pretty spooky feeling. Right, I'm having to film from the entranceway as I actually neglected to bring a torch, and a phone can be a camera or a torch, but not both. So from here you can see this main entranceway. Come on, focus. That leads to 5 different passages leading off this corridor. 2 of them have been blocked off due to subsidence or leakage or something like that. I'm not entirely sure. Something to do with conservation. But this is a very large space. This would be, I don't know, it's about the size of a large family living room, if not larger. Maybe even a small flat. There are these big stones up above. They're going to be additions by the Victorians to renovate. But these ones at the sides, they're just put in place from the Neolithic period, maybe shored up a little to make it safe. And you can explore all of this distance as long as you have a torch. You can go all the way to the back there. And yes, I once sat in a barrow, not this barrow, during the rain, as a huge rainstorm came down and I was unprepared, no coat, no umbrella, and I just sat inside waiting for the rain to stop. And I tell you, that's a very surreal experience. Much like lying down in the entrance of a barrow, trying not to think about the ceiling falling in. So with that, I'm going to leave the inside of this barrow and go and look at its outside some more. For a person in the Neolithic period, death was not the end. We don't know what their ideas of the afterlife were, but we know that their physical remains would remain in barrows like these for generations, being brought out to show people their ancestors in a communal ritual. Over time, as they entered into the Bronze Age, these long barrows faded out of fashion and were replaced with round barrows. Round barrows are round, as the name suggests, looking a bit like a Christmas pudding, and they wouldn't have the bones of the community in them. They wouldn't have lots of individuals. They would usually have the cremated remains of 1 or 2 people, suggesting that they were built by wealthy aristocracy or a similar function in society, a similar level of prestige and wealth. It seems a little bit strange to us to have tea time with the ancestors, as it were, to either go to these barrows to take the remains out or to go to these barrows to spend time with the bones of the dead. but it's a practice that survived in cultures around the world until very, very recently, and some cultures still do similar things. It's also important to remember that these barrows, though they are beautiful covered in grass, would not have been covered in grass during the Neolithic period. They would have been kept brilliantly white with clay, not clay, with chalk. Duh, clay isn't white. Brilliantly white with chalk so that they gleamed and you could see those barrows for miles. So not only would they act as a funeral parlour, but it's also been suggested that they act as a totem pole, a way of saying this land is our land, please don't come and kill us. Or worse, this land is our land, we'll kill you if you come close. So it had many different functions in society, even if its main purpose as a charnel house can seem a little bit morbid, a little bit creepy today. And behind me we can see the view that Neolithic barrow makers were protecting. This is the view they would have had. We're about a mile from the barrow, but the trees are thinned here and you can see for miles all the way to the River Severn and Wales beyond. And it's just the best view I've ever seen in England. It really is amazing.